Welcome back. In this video, we're going to show some numbers that will pop up on the screen when we hit the enemy, showing us how much damage each bullet hit is doing. Let's go ahead and get started. Now we're going to go into the HUD folder and create a new widget blueprint. Right-click, User Interface, and Widget Blueprint, and let's call this Hit Number. Go ahead and open Hit Number. And let's delete the canvas panel. Go ahead and click the drop down next to fill screen and select custom. Let's add a text to this. And we'll call this hit number text. Let's give this a default value. Here in the content section, I'll just give it a number like 3. Now I'm going to change the font. I'm going to search for Head Human, and I think I'll use Head Human Bold Cond font. Now I'll go ahead and open the outline settings and give it an outline size of 1, and I'll compile and save this widget blueprint. Now I'd like to be able to show this from C++. So let's go back into the enemy class. Now I'm going to go down into the public function and make a public function called showHitNumber. We're going to want to call this function from the shooter character whenever we hit the enemy. And showHitNumber needs some information. We're going to want to know how much damage to show in that number. So we're going to use an int32 called damage. We also want to know the location so we know where to show that number. We're going to use the hit location for that. So let's put an f vector input parameter called hit location. Now I'd like to implement this in blueprints. So I'm going to make this a U function and I'm going to give it blueprint implementable event. And I need to make sure to spell U function correctly. Now we're going to call this from shooter character. So let's go into shooterCharacter.cpp and we're going to find the send bullet function. Here in send bullet, we can scroll down to where we cast our hit result to an enemy, and then we check to see if we hit the head bone. After we check to see if we hit the head bone, we can go ahead and call the showHitNumber function. So let's get our hit enemy and call showHitNumber. And showHitNumber needs to know how much damage to display, and it needs the hit location. So since we need to know how much damage we're doing, we need to know whether or not we hit the head or the body. So what we can do is here, just inside the if check for hit enemy, we can make an int32 called damage using braced initialization to initialize it to 0. And then if we hit the head, we can set damage equal to the equipped weapon's headshot damage amount. So here in the headshot if check, we're going to say damage equals, and we're going to use equipped weapon get headshot damage. And then we can simply pass damage in to apply damage here, like that. Now in the else case, we hit the body. So here we need to set damage equal to equipped weapon get damage. So we're going to call that and set damage equal to get damage. And now in apply damage, we can simply pass in damage here as well. Now since we declared damage outside of this if check, it exists in the scope here where we're calling showHitNumber, so we can simply pass in damage to showHitNumber. Now we also need the hit location. So we have this beam hit result, so we're going to use that beam hit result, and we're going to get location. So now we're calling showHitNumber, passing in the damage and the hit location. We can compile this and we can go back into the editor and implement showHitNumber in blueprints. Okay, so we're back in the editor and we're ready to implement showHitNumber. Let's go back into our enemy BP. So back in our enemies folder, here's enemy BP. we're going to implement the event. So right click and type show hit number. Now, whenever we call show hit number, we want to show that number widget, which means we need to create one. So I'm going to drag off the execution wire and type create widget. Now we're going to create a widget, and the type that we're going to create is going to be that hit number type. So we're going to use the hit number widget blueprint class. Now from this create widget node, we're going to add this to the viewport. So we're going to say add to viewport. And after we add the widget to the viewport, we need to set its position. So I'm going to drag off the return value from the create hit number widget and use set position in viewport. And we'll call this right after add to viewport. Now the position is a 2D vector. It needs a position in screen space. So what we can do is we can project our hit location from the world space to the screen space. And in order to do that, we have to get the player controller. So right click and type get player controller, and the player controller class has the function project world to screen. Now project world to screen requires a world position, and we're just going to pass in our hit location. Now project world to screen returns a screen position, which is a 2D vector. We're going to plug that straight into position for set position in viewport. So let's go ahead and compile and hit play to see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and get a pistol so we can test semi-automatic fire. And we'll see that we get some numbers, and it might be really hard to see on your screen, but there's a tiny little 3 just inside the crosshairs here. And as I move the camera, the 3 keeps its screen space position so it follows the camera. So there are some issues we need to work out. For one, the hit number's font is way too small. So I'm going to take this hit number text and I'm going to change its font to have a size of about 60. That way we can at least see this in the viewport. So I'm going to compile, save that, and I'm going to open a second viewport and hit Alt-P, and let's go ahead and pick up a weapon and shoot the enemy. Now you can see this number. Now 60 might be a bit large, but I just wanted to make sure that we can see the number on the screen. So let's go back and set hit number. I'd say about 45 is probably a good enough size. We can adjust this if we need to. Now we need to make sure that that number doesn't follow the camera in screen space. We want it to stay in the location where we hit the enemy. We also want to set the value of this number when we create the widget. So we'll do these things in the videos to come, but for now we have a number widget that we're displaying to the screen when we hit the enemy. So we'll conclude this video here and continue in the next video. I'll see you then.